This is Kim Newlove, host of the Pharmacist Voice podcast, where I share my journey from pharmacist to voice actor and interview a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that you can be inspired to use your voice too. This is episode 116, and you can find the show notes with links to anything mentioned on today's show on my website, thepharmacistvoice.com. You can also find my medical narration demo and a link to my online course, Pronounce Drug Names Like a Pro, on my website. That website again is thepharmacistvoice.com. Today is Friday, October 1st, 2021. It's the first day of American Pharmacists Month. If you are an American pharmacist, happy Pharmacists Month. It's a time when pharmacists in all practice settings are recognized for their contributions to healthcare and their positive impact in their communities. Thank you, pharmacists everywhere, for the important work you do. In honor of American Pharmacists Month, I'm changing my format just a little bit. October has 5 Fridays this year. I'll release an episode every Friday, just like normal, but instead of alternating solo shows and interview shows, I'm sharing 2 interview shows in a row on the first 2 Fridays. Then I'll have a 3-part mini-series on a unique pharmacist-related topic on the last 3 Fridays. Here are 2 important dates to know about this month. The first is Women Pharmacist Day. Women Pharmacist Day is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. According to womenpharmacistday.com, on Women Pharmacist Day, we celebrate the significant gains that women have made in pursuing careers in pharmacy, honor trailblazers who have made such progress possible, and recognize the important contributions that women pharmacists make every day to deliver quality care to patients nationwide. To learn more about Women Pharmacist Day, visit womenpharmacistday.com. There's a link in the show notes. The second important date to know about this month is Pharmacy Technician Day. Pharmacy Technician Day is Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. This October 19th, thank the pharmacy technicians in your life for their support and contributions. Without the support of my techs over the years, I know that I would have struggled to do it all myself. From making IVs to entering and filling prescriptions to building relationships with patients and selling prescriptions at the register. Thank you, pharmacy technicians, for all you do. Speaking of pharmacy technicians, today's episode is an interview with Mike Johnston, CPhT. He is the founder and CEO of the National Pharmacy Technician Association, or NPTA. Under Mike's strategic vision and leadership, NPTA has become the world's largest professional membership organization for pharmacy technicians, with over 80,000 members in the United States and from around the world who practice in a diverse variety of practice settings, including community pharmacy, health system pharmacy, federal pharmacy services, purchasing, and education, among others. NPTA is committed to advancing the pharmacy technician career through education, advocacy, and support. Mike Johnston is also the host of CPhT Connect Podcast, the publisher of CPhT Connect Magazine, and the author of 9 best-selling pharmacy technician textbooks and training manuals. In addition, Mike serves as the only voting pharmacy technician member of the United States Pharmacopeia, or USP. Mike's mission is to serve as a respected and trusted advocate for pharmacy technicians and to work towards the elimination of preventable medication errors. He holds a BS degree with honors in business management and ethics from Dallas Christian College. On a personal note, I have listened to several episodes of CPhT Connect Podcast and I would recommend it to pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and pharmacy students. You can find CPhT Connect Podcast at CPHTconnect.com or on your favorite podcast player. There's also a link in the show notes. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Mike Johnston, CPhT. Mike, welcome to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking me to join you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Ever since I found out who you are and about your podcast, I have been excited to have you on my podcast. It's great to have you with me today.
Certainly. And we really enjoyed having you over on our podcast as well.
Yes, and thanks for having me. Yours is only the second episode swap, as I call it, that I've ever done. I did an episode swap with IVPN Voice and with CPhT Connect now. So that was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, we're really new to the space, so it's been a big learning curve for us for sure.
Well, you're doing great. You're off to a great start. I am excited to have you share with my audience today how you use your voice. You are definitely an advocate for pharmacy technicians. You are an educator of pharmacy technicians, and you are an entertainer by proxy because you have a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I've been called. I've been called a lot of things in my career, but I think that's the first time I've been called an entertainer. But I'll take it.
Yeah, I think people prefer the term edutainer or edutainment now because really you're educating your audience about something, but it's entertainment by extension because they're listening to it probably in a car. Hello, everybody that's driving right now or working out. You know, it's part of entertainment instead of sitting there reading it and it feeling like education. Would you agree?
Right. Absolutely. You got to keep their interest. You definitely have to keep everyone's interest.
Yes. And you have to meet people where they're at. There's a lot of people out there that are too busy to read things. And if you can reach them where they're at, walking the dog, washing the dishes, folding the laundry, commuting to work, on their break, then you have reached them.
Yeah, I think, one of the most interesting things about where technology has taken us is it's really put the consumer in the driver's seat so far as getting to have a voice and say in what they consume, when they consume it, and how they consume it.
Yes. And the savvy entrepreneur or writer or entertainer knows these things and meets that need. You have to meet people's needs. I think that's why a lot of companies that have evolved over time are so successful. They become heroes because they are solving problems for people right now and meeting them where they're at. Just look at Amazon in the pandemic. They became a big hero meeting people's needs because people don't want to leave their homes and go out and buy things. Boom, meet them where they're at. They're at home.
Yeah, I think the ones that succeed the most actually are somehow able to recognize the problems that their customers are going to face, that they don't even know yet that they're going to be facing, and they're able to prepare and strategize and plan for that so that way they've got that answer when their customer is ready.
Absolutely. Anticipating needs is definitely helpful too. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and get right into the advocacy part of what you do. You are meeting the needs of technicians for advocacy and education. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about NPTA. What does that stand for? And what do you do?
Sure. So it's obviously the pharmacy industry needs one more abbreviation or acronym. So NPTA is the National Pharmacy Technician Association. It's an organization that I started back in 1999 down here in Houston. I was a practicing pharmacy technician at the time, and a lot of changes started going into effect for technicians. The concept of certification and PTCB had just barely started to emerge. And in the state of Texas, the state board came out with a requirement saying that all technicians were going to have to become PTCB certified in order to be able to register with the State Board of Pharmacy and be able to work. And not that that was a bad advancement by any means, but there was a sense of not really having any skin in the game, not obviously like your focus is not having a voice in the room at the table. And that just didn't really sit well with me. And so that's really where kind of the concept came from is, as technicians, we need to get together and at least make sure that we are part of the conversation. We certainly understand that we are working under the supervision of pharmacists, but it certainly is good to have a seat at the table.
You have a seat at a number of tables, you personally, and I really appreciate what you do, giving pharmacy technicians a voice. Can you tell me a little bit about the advocacy work?
Sure. So our advocacy efforts and priorities have really been on getting standards kind of standardized, if you will, across the board around all 50 states. And that would require, at a minimum, having pharmacy technician registration with the State Board of Pharmacy. That would require some form of standardized training for the individuals, as well as a certification exam or a national competency exam. And so, over the last 20 years, that's been a big task to get that done in so many different states. And we're getting to the point now where nearly all the states are in place with that. And so now, I think most topically, our biggest pressing issue is to go and work with these 50 state boards and stakeholders to make the recent developments with technician-administered immunizations a permanent situation on the states in their state board books. And so that's also going to take a lot of work coming up.
Wow, times have really changed. I think I started pharmacy school back in 1996. You're telling me earlier that NPTA came along around 1999, and I really feel like you have helped push the ball down the field, and you guys are making some huge gains. And all these things that you're able to do now, immunizations, I couldn't even do immunizations back in the 90s. That's amazing. That is very supportive for patient care, and it helps take another thing off the pharmacist's table. I know a lot of pharmacists have a lot of responsibilities. There's only one pharmacist a lot of times and many technicians. If we could just get the technicians to be able to do some of those things that kind of clutter the pharmacist's day, that's great for the patient and the pharmacist.
Yeah, I think you're witnessing a real transition in the industry right now. Over the last couple of decades, there's been a lot of movement and growth just so far as the overall concept and role of the pharmacist in shifting further away from the operational aspect and really more into the clinical consultative expert status that pharmacists are when it comes to drug information. But I think in order to get where we've got to go as a country, as society, we've got to advance the pharmacists, but we've got to at the same time advance the technicians. It's not going to work without having them both move, simultaneously down the road.
Mike, have you found that technician delivered immunizations is a polarizing topic? Are some people for it and some against, or are most people for it?
I think from a broad stroke, it has been very well accepted. I think if it had been in a different time or a different situation, we probably would have seen a lot more pushback potentially. But I think just, kind of being forced into the matter with a pandemic and the realization that we simply cannot, we don't have enough manpower without doing this to immunize, these hundreds of millions of individuals. So I think it was a kind of a perfect storm with that. But for the most part, everyone seems to embracing it. You've got technicians too, though, that are not necessarily for it themselves. They say, that's a bit more than I'm really comfortable with. And I think that's important. I don't think anyone should ever do anything that's outside their comfort level, even if they're trained with it. So, if someone is not in the mind space to be administering immunizations, then let's make sure they're not actually doing it.
That's a good point. And I must say, back when I was, I guess, forced into becoming an immunizing pharmacist, I wasn't real comfortable with it at first. And it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. I kind of put it off until my employer said, "Hey, it's time." And I went ahead and did it. But just for any pharmacy technicians listening, not all pharmacists at first were comfortable with it either. But now I think it's just an expectation. And it's almost like that, not peer pressure, but it's like it's such a commonly accepted thing around among pharmacists that we all just do it, and we know it's right for our patients. And yeah, there's no question about that now.
And I think that's where we'll be in in a matter of years with technicians as well.
Great. Now, on your website for the National Pharmacy Technicians Association, can you give me that website real quick?
Sure, it's pharmacytechnician.org.
Thank you. At pharmacytechnician.org, I noticed that you have an advocacy tab. Can you tell me, are these issues that we just talked about in that tab?
Yeah, the standard ones are definitely in there. We're in the process of updating it right now with some of our new initiatives around immunization administration and those items. But there's also going to be a place in there. So if there's technicians or pharmacists or anyone that is supportive of these missions, that they can get involved and help out with the process.
Speaking of your website, you have a great website. There are so many tabs. I think I counted 10. And among those, there's a tab for CE. Can you tell me a little bit about CE opportunities for pharmacy technicians?
Yeah, so nationally certified pharmacy technicians are required to complete 20 hours of CE every 2 years, and they've got a few requirements nationally, and then depending on their state, they may have some additional areas as well, like law and patient safety. And so NPTA is one of the largest providers of ACP accredited CE for technicians. We've been ACP providers since the early 2000s, back before there was P designation and T designation and all those great things. But yeah, we have, I don't even know how many hours of CE we have available at any time, but it's probably somewhere between 60 or 70 hours right now.
Is that all included in the membership?
It is, yeah.
Fantastic. I understand that NPTA has over 80,000 members. Wow, that's a ton. I didn't even know that NPTA existed until recently. So, congratulations on your success. But I've got to ask, who should join NPTA?
Well, we're open to all pharmacy technicians and pharmacy technician students. We've got individuals working in literally every type of practice setting there is. We have members that range with their passion of just looking to get their continuing education credits and making sure that they're staying on top of their certification and registration or licensure needs, up to those individuals that want to get involved in various career development projects and goals and really advance that way. So we try to be there to support technicians throughout their entire career journey, wherever that may lead them.
That's awesome. Again, congratulations on all your success and these great offerings. Now, I understand you also offer some advanced certifications. Again, I am kind of new to this. I know it sounds like I've got some catching up to do, but I'm so glad that I went to your website. I would love it if you would talk about some of the advanced certifications that are available through NPTA.
Yeah, so there's three primary programs that we've been offering now for probably about 15 years. We offer an advanced certification in sterile compounding, a separate one in hazardous compounding, and finally, there's one in non-sterile compounding. And we have certified through the sterile compounding program. It's well over 12,000 individuals have taken our course. And so it's certainly kind of the standard in the industry when it comes to that training and credential.
It sounds like a credential that someone would pursue if they already have a job in compounding. Is that correct? Or is this something that someone earns and then is now equipped to find a job in compounding?
So we have individuals kind of come in from both pathways. The course is set up that it's a great program if you do have experience, or it also can step you through all the basics and the major instructions if you are new to the concept. The course is part home study, and part of it is hands-on training with skill validation. So it's not just learning from a computer in that regard, but we have people come in from both spectrums. What I can tell you is our research shows that IB certification is the number one attribute that helps technicians earn the greatest amount on their salary.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now, since we're on the topic of compounding, and I have read that you are from Houston, Texas, is there a relationship between you and the Professional Compounding Centers of America, PCCA, in the Houston, Texas area?
There is. So my relationship with PCCA goes back many, many years, even before the association, because my background is in non-sterile compounding as well. So yeah, we have a great relationship, and we like to consider ourselves the two main pharmacy associations down here in Houston. So we've got that camaraderie down here. But yeah, we do. We work on quite a few projects together, and we're looking at rolling out even more programs with them.
Mike, I'm going to tell you something that there's no way you would have known. I turned 21 in Houston, Texas at PCCA. That's right, I'm a big nerd. I was at the college experience that PCCA offered, and it just happened to be my birthday. It was in the summer of, what would that have been, 1999.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, if you've got any college students listening right now, that is a really incredible experience to go to PCCA and take part in one of their training programs. Their labs are incredible. The whole setup there, it's just a really great experience.
Yes, PCCA is awesome. I would definitely recommend that college experience for any pharmacy student out there. It was a great experience. I learned how to make all kinds of things: creams, suppositories, capsules, PLO gels, if I remember right. It was great. Yeah. Got to nerd out on some science and spend my birthday among a bunch of other young people. It was great. Now, kind of along the same lines as all this compounding talk, I noticed in your bio that you have some sort of a seat at the table with USP, the United States Pharmacopeia. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I am a voting delegate of USP. I'm actually the only pharmacy technician that is a voting member of the organization, which is a tremendous honor. And I certainly take that responsibility very seriously when attending convention, knowing that I'm representing the technicians there. But it was a pretty interesting story about how you get invited to be on USP, because you don't apply. Let's put that out there right up front. You can apply to serve on their expert committees and things like that, but it's kind of a closed door organization on the convention membership. And they have, I want to say there's about 300 delegates worldwide that are voting delegates. So we got a call at our office, and this has been a very long time ago, from someone at USP headquarters. And that voicemail, that message got written up and left on my desk. And so if you get a phone call from USP that you're not expecting, you think you're in really, really deep trouble. I didn't know if we had done something wrong with our training program or there was some kind of issue, but I was informed that I had been under consideration to be a USP delegate. And so they had basically put together a whole dossier and been researching me and doing all that to let me know that I was moving forward to a committee vote. And then after that, it would go to the board it was a whole process. But, and then it's, once you're in, you're just kind of in, I guess.
Well, tell me about the responsibilities that you have as a voting member.
So certainly, the main responsibility, in my opinion, is to be involved with USP and to represent technicians and our association and make sure that we are providing a good flow of information back and forth. So far as official duties as a voting delegate, we meet at what they call convention. It's held every 5 years, and that's where we gather together and we basically spend 4 or 5 days in an auditorium going through, all these different standards and um, updates to the governing documents and the process and procedures and all of that sort of stuff. And we go through and read it, review it, debate it, flesh it out, and then ultimately take votes. And that basically sets the charge for the organization for the next 5 years.
I see. Okay. So you're not really making decisions about content that goes into their publications, for example. It's more about the organization itself.
Sure. It's more about the overall governance, including how those expert committees do govern under that. But the work throughout the 5 year period, that's done at committee levels that the convention oversees.
You are part of two very highly respected organizations. Much respect to you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Mike, let's talk about another way that you use your voice. You are a writer. Can you tell me a little bit about all the publications that you've been part of?
Yeah. So I have published, I believe it's about 14 books currently. The first book I published was a self-published book called RX for Success. It was kind of a career enhancement guide for technicians. And then after that, I got into the education space and partnered with Pearson Education. And through them have published an entire series of textbooks for pharmacy technicians and then additional items for them as well later.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your success. That's amazing. Is the content of that evergreen, or is it content that needs updated where there's a first edition, second edition, and so on?
So it is definitely not evergreen content. Everything has to be updated and reviewed, just as all the information is being updated in the industry. It's got to be updated in those books as well. So they are a lifelong passion project for sure.
Your first book, RX for Success, would you say that that is a good first book for somebody to take a look at if they're interested in being a pharmacy technician or reading something that you've written?
That I don't think it's even available anymore.
Oh.
That was a long time ago, and that didn't get updated. So you might find a copy on eBay or something. Who knows?
I was just curious because I did not do my homework and look that one up on Amazon or eBay, as you suggested. But yeah, I was just curious about, what was in it and if it still holds true today.
I think we've got more up to date resources now. Probably in that regard, I would steer someone to my Ultimate Career Navigator course that they can check out on rxmike.com. It's a whole program that steps them through the career enhancement process.
Got it. That's good to know. What's that website again?
rxmike.com.
Now, is that your own personal private business or is that something to do also with NPTA?
No, that's just more of my personal brand.
Oh, that's cool. Congratulations on that. You are very talented.
I stay busy, that's for sure.
Mike, I understand that you have a magazine too. Can you tell me what is it called and what's it all about?
Yeah, we do. It's called CPhT Connect, and it is a full color magazine specifically for pharmacy technicians. It goes through, all sorts of information and updates of what's going on in the industry, and has CE programs in there, and a lot of really great content being developed.
I noticed that the name of your podcast is very similar to the name of that magazine. Are they supposed to go together, complement one another?
They do. So CPhT Connect is kind of our arm that we are putting out a lot of media these days with with the overall mission of connecting technicians together. We ultimately want to bring technicians closer together and get them engaging with one another even more.
Sounds great. Now let's talk about your podcast. Your podcast is CPhT Connect. I believe as we record this on September 21st, 2021, there are 9 episodes out. Can you tell me about the mission of the podcast? What's the description?
Yeah, so our goal with the podcast is really to bring some interesting industry leaders to the table each week that we can discuss things that are happening in pharmacy, specifically as it approaches and pertains to pharmacy technicians. And so I think a lot of times technicians don't feel like they get much recognition or maybe the respect that they would appreciate. So I think it's a really great opportunity to have these industry leaders and experts in the field come and specifically be there to talk to them as technicians. It's been really a great journey so far.
Very good. Well, congratulations on 9 episodes in, and there's no stopping anytime soon, right?
How many episodes are you at?
I'm at episode 115 coming out this Friday, the 24th of September.
Oh my! So does it get easier?
Yes.
Because at 9, I'm still a baby at this and trying to get my feet wet.
I would say that you have to set a deadline for yourself and just keep meeting it every week. There are some weeks where I don't feel like pumping out a podcast, but I am big on making commitments and sticking to them. I've been married for 20 years. I've been with my husband since 1993, 28 years. And that's a commitment that I just love. And podcasting is not as exciting as being married, okay? But it's kind of like that. You wake up every day and you acknowledge the commitment. But I must say that I have thought about stepping back and going to every other week or once a month. I just haven't done it yet. But here's the thing. Let me tell you something that my podcasting coach told me. He said, a podcast is a recipe, not a statue. So you start a podcast, right? And at first, you have a weekly schedule. You have all these guests that you want to have on. You have the intro a certain way. You have a professionally published intro by a voice actor. I can tell she's wonderful. You have music. Someday you may want to just jump right into something. It's up to you. And then you have a question from a listener, somehow from your Facebook group, right? If you ever want to change that, you can. I give you permission to change your podcast, Mike.
That sounds good.
But yeah, it's a recipe, not a statue. It's not meant to stand still. And if you ever want to have a solo podcast where you, like your first episode ever, where you talked about your personal mission and who you are and how NPTA came to be, those are pretty cool too. I've taken a step back from the whole pharmacist voice actor podcast host thing on Thanksgiving and Christmas and vacation and just told people a little bit about who I am, where I come from, riding 3-wheelers out on my grandpa's farm and stuff, People cool. Want to hear that too.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Maybe we can do some kind of Thanksgiving special episode.
Absolutely. Mike, when I listened to your first podcast episode for CPhT Connect, I heard you talk about your personal mission to eliminate preventable medication errors, in part by helping pharmacy technicians realize and reach their full potential. I thought that was so meaningful. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came up with that?
Yeah, so there's really these 2 parts to this mission for me. There's a huge part of me where my passion really lies in patient safety, medication safety, reducing and eliminating medication errors. And then obviously my passion lies with the pharmacy technician and helping technicians advance their careers. And what I see is a beautiful marriage between those two items, because I think the more we're able to train and educate and advance technicians, here you've got an opportunity to have a direct impact on also increasing medication safety and reducing medication errors. So I'm not sure exactly where it all spurred from initially, but I definitely know that the turning point for me was in learning the story of Emily Jerry and having the honor of working side by side with her mom, Kelly, in getting regulations put in place in the state of Ohio.
Well, your passion for pharmacy technicians and medication safety is evident through the conversations I've had with you. I think NPTA has the right leader, and I am very excited that we got to meet and get to know each other, and for me to have you on the podcast. Is there anything else that you'd like to share as we wrap this up?
Well, again, first of all, thank you for inviting me to sit on the podcast. But yeah, I just want to encourage your listeners, just like you do with your whole message here, is to do what's necessary to find your voice, and then make sure that you're using it. That we all have a voice, and we all have a way to make an impact with that. So whatever your passion is, just make sure that you're using your voice.
Inspirational words. Thank you. Thanks again for being on the Pharmacist Voice podcast, Mike. Take care.
Thanks so much.
I'd like to share some final thoughts with you. This was my first podcast interview with a pharmacy technician. Mike Johnston fit my podcast guest criteria perfectly. My guests use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain. Mike uses his voice as an advocate for pharmacy technicians and as a pharmacy technician educator. His podcast is entertaining in an edutaining way, and I truly enjoyed hearing him share how he uses his voice during our conversation. Mike Johnston gives pharmacy technicians, collectively, a voice, and he connects with them in print, online, and via his podcast. Mike Johnston knows the importance of having a voice and using it. Much respect, Mike. During our conversation, Mike said that we need to advance pharmacy technicians as we advance pharmacists. I agree. A rising tide lifts all boats. Technicians and pharmacists can both advance. On October 19th, let's remember to thank our pharmacy technicians for their support, and let's support them as they advance their profession. Thank you for listening to episode 116 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. You'll find links to NPTA, the National Pharmacy Technician Association, CPhT Connect Podcast, Mike Johnston's LinkedIn profile, and more in those show notes. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend and follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player so that each new episode is delivered right to your smartphone every time a new episode comes out. Thank you again for listening, and happy Pharmacist Month.